Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Hang all the mistletoe, I'm gonna get to know you better. This Christmas.
This is the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and I'm trying to get into the Christmas spirit. So we're just going to play some carols as we go along. I'm going to be listening to them across the weekend. I'm trying to get my decorations up, and I don't know if I'm going to make it, so y'all going to have to pray for me. We may not have stockings because we'll have to dig through the boxes to find them, and I don't feel like doing all that. So we'll see what happens. There is a lot happening in our nation's capital that we talked about earlier in the show in terms of the House passing a stopgap funding bill and the drama and chaos that led to that. But there's also some news out of Georgia, and you all know that we've been talking about and watching Georgia, for a while, not just, sort of all the way back to 2020. And the election outcome. But recently, in the last day, we learned that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis has been removed from the Georgia election case against Donald Trump. So a Georgia appeals court made the call yesterday. You all remember that claims that Willis had an inappropriate relationship with one of her colleagues and that impacted her ability to handle the case, made headlines, and we were sort of glued to our television sets watching as that played out. But it really distracted from the real issue of Trump's attempt to influence the outcome of the 2020 election in Georgia. And now removing Willis seems to be a strategy to actually just quietly drop the case against Trump, which is a criminal case and not just civil action. And so Willis has filed a notice of intent to the Georgia State Supreme Court for review. And you all remember that unlike the special counsel, Jack Smith, who dropped his prosecutions against Trump, Willis actually didn't back down. You all remember she announced the bombshell indictment against Trump and 18 others back in August of 2023 using the state's anti-racketeering laws, which included the now, infamous call to state Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger demanding that he find Trump more votes. So it is not over. The appeals court said that she needed to be removed. She is appealing to the Georgia State Supreme Court. So we will see what happens. We should pay attention to what's happening as that sort of plays out in Georgia. But I want to talk for just a second more about how emboldened Trump and his handlers seem to be. We talked earlier, of course, about the government shutdown, the growing influence of billionaires, notably Elon Musk, in our government. And we talked a couple of weeks ago with a guest, Tracy Corder, about Trump opening the doors to billionaires and others that directly benefit from many of the policies that we'll be seeing with this in this incoming Trump administration. And so there's some recent reporting from the American Prospect that points to a letter by Representative Rosa DeLauro to the congressional leadership of both parties, asserting that Musk's attack on the spending bill, in his attempt to get Republicans to pass what he wanted, has to do with a provision that would impact his investments in China and primarily around his Tesla investments. So Representative DeLauro pointed to Musk's objections to the provisions that would screen investments in critical sectors in China. So, Andy, I think we have a clip of the Congresswoman discussing this.
Musk, who got rich off of $20 billion in federal contracts for his companies, he now makes half of his company's cars at Tesla It has a $7 billion plant, is in Shanghai. He clearly does not want to have to answer any questions about how much he plans to expand his business and businesses in China, and how many American technologies he plans to sell to the highest bidder.
So, again, Elon Musk is not elected or duly appointed member of any branch of this government. He runs or is being set up to run a fake government agency. And so when we hear people talking about the department that he is, the Department of Government Efficiency, that he is running along with Vivek Ramaswamy, it is not a government agency. We should not treat it as such. It is a set of billionaire advisors essentially telling the United States government what it should do, and obviously because they have interests and in around the world, financial interests, right, around the world, and Representative DeLauro is sort of making the point that he is in fact asking for the government, he's asking for Congress to look the other way when it comes to his business dealings, and seems to be in a position, if what we just saw play out over the last 48 hours is any indication, he seems to be in a position to be able to tell the members, at least of the Republican Party in the House of Representatives and presumably in the United States Senate as well, what they should be doing. And of course, what he says that they should be doing is whatever his bidding is. Again, this sort of large-scale grift of billionaires who are having, significant influence in our government, all for their own personal gain, it would appear. And so we should be paying attention to the degree that we can at what is actually happening, what is the intent behind why decisions are being made, and who is influencing what inside of our government. I know that we know this, but we are seeing it play out even before Inauguration Day. So important for us to watch this space. When we come forward, we're going to be joined by Tia Oso, the Senior Director of Media 2070, a media reparations project at the Free Press, to discuss ways in which the traditional media are sort of bending the knee to a would-be dictator at this point. And obviously, importantly, our press really needs to be informing us of even the kinds of issues that we just talked about. What we talked about earlier in terms of how the last 48 hours played out and the chaos and what was behind that when we have these unelected billionaires making decisions about United States policy. We need our press to be reporting on that. And I think the big question is, will they? So we're happy to be joined by Tia Oso when we come forward. This is KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to the Black Pack.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580. Starting Monday, January 6th, KBLA Talk 1580 has a new midday lineup.
I'm excited.
Are you ready for Tavis Smiley, Dr. Cornel West, Jesse Jackson Jr., D.L. Hughley, and E. Quarterly Corte back-to-back?
Oh, my God.
Are you really ready for all this smoke?
I'm ready, brother.
Yes, we still have Dominique DePrima in the mornings and Zoe Williams in the evenings, but middays just got lit on KBLA Talk 1580.
We on fire.
All across America, people are talking about our new midday lineup. Starting Monday, January 6th, our KBLA 1580 app downloads are on fire because everybody's going to be tuning in.
Yes, I love you guys. You are the bomb.
Now would be a good time to hit up SMB at KBLA1580.com if you want folks to hear about your business or brand. That's SMB at KBLA1580.com. It's going up in 2025 on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's going up.
That's what I want.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, home of the 2024 Climate Justice Campaign.
Order for Jennifer C.
Is this my double shot, double cream, double froth, double pump, double whip, double sleeve?
Yeah. Can you handle that much caffeine?
Did you know Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year?
Oh, really? That's great.
Seriously, did you know Discover automatically doubles all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year?
Yeah, you just said that.
Did you say I just said that?
Yeah, I'm cutting you off.
I can't have any more? Why not?
You earn, we match. Discover Cashback Match. See terms at discover.com/credit.
Hey, what are you doing up on the step stool?
About to clean these light fixtures. The whole family's coming over, and if there's even a speck of dust in the house, my abuela will find it.
Here, I got a Swiffer duster to help with that.
A Swiffer what?
A Swiffer duster. It has this cool extendable handle that reaches 6 feet to get high and low, with fluffy dusters that easily trap and lock dust.
So, no more step stool?
No more step stool.
Easily trap and lock dust from hard-to-reach places with the Swiffer duster. Love it or your money back.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to the Black Pack. I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and we are joined now by Tia Oso, the Senior Director of Media 2070, a media reparations project housed at Free Press. Welcome, Tia.
Hi, Adrianne. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So I want to talk a little bit about what is happening with our media. So I think everyone has been a little bit and I guess it's not even in the aftermath of the election, right? I think we've seen this sort of trend toward the media. In many ways, you know, one, they just look kind of suspect, right? And have so for a minute, right? The sort of both sidesing every issue, the sort of sane washing, the utter nonsense that we're seeing, elevating issues. We saw it during the campaign, certainly, like elevating non-issues to the status of being, real issues that voters should have cared about, while completely ignoring, the dictatorial, tendencies and rhetoric and racist rhetoric, right, of Donald Trump and his folks. So and it's sort of come to, I don't even know if it's come to a head, but it's sort of been highlighted, right? That sort of, bending the knee, as I said before, with Disney's settlement of a defamation lawsuit that seemed like it was a case that they could have won, right? It was certainly winnable. Right. And essentially are, paying Donald Trump, right, $15 million to be nice to him is what it looks like. But we've seen many other, sort of examples of that, and maybe we'll get into some of those as well. But how does corporate media, what is and I wonder sometimes, like, it feels like it's their bottom line, right, that is sort of driving them to act in the way that they're trying to act. But the reality is that when they do that, there are real impacts both for the nation as a whole and certainly for Black communities more specifically, because at the end of the day, right, our communities will be on the front line of whatever policy decisions get made, and they're sort of in my view, sort of emboldening the kind of behavior that will lead to the policies that are going to be detrimental to our communities.
Yeah, exactly, Adrianne. And, to understand where we are now, we have to understand that at the beginning, right, of our media system and corporate media itself is systemic racism. And that's what the Media 2070 campaign and media reparations, we want to talk about the root causes and where we came from so we can understand what's happening now. Mm-hmm. And so for people who don't know, We have our debut essay, An Invitation to Dream Up Media Reparations, and we also have a reparative journalism video series where we talk about the history of media harm in this country, in that the earliest newspapers and the history of the media industry in the United States actually has its roots in enslavement, where, colonial newspapers financed, right, their operations by advertising, slaves for sale. And so we have to understand that, right, to understand where we are now, where we have this literally, elite capture of billionaire ownership of press, broadcast, and digital media. And now they are, using the most important, right, aspects of information systems in our country and in our nation, both to not just enrich themselves, which is already bad enough, right? We're talking about corporate media, but now to control and manipulate society. And that's what we're seeing happen today.
Right. So I'm really glad that you said that, because we often do think about, particularly when we're sort of in these high-minded conversations about, the role of the media and, how they're abandoning us and all that sort of stuff. We forget the history. Right, we forget the history
exactly.
Of corporate media, not only in sort of announcing the sale of human beings, but also in our recapture. Right, someone ran away and they're last seen in this area, and if you see them, bring them back. Right, like these is mainstream media. This was mainstream media then and now. Right, so I appreciate you bringing that up, and I do want to ask you, can you we've talked a little bit about there is a way in which the mainstream media is really fueling this new rise, right, of of authoritarianism in the country. What is underneath all of that? And I think that's a little bit the question I was asking about. Like, is it because it's easy to say, oh, it's just because they're making money, right? And maybe that is right. Like, people don't want to. Obviously Trump during the campaign threatened to take people's licenses away, right? If they said mean things about him. So in some ways, it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like, people want to continue to be able to function, but is it just that? And what is their actual responsibility?
Yeah, and I don't think that it can't purely be profit motive, because they do things that lose them money. Elon Musk purchased Twitter in order to control really, the influence of democratic voices and the movements that were being built and, gaining traction through first digital spaces and then having an impact in the real world, right? Yeah. So Black Lives Matter starts off as a hashtag, Me Too starts off as, hashtag and Twitter thread conversations, and then we see policy change, we see societal attitude shift. So this is also about social control. This is also about, a small handful of wealthy white elite people wanting to make sure that they protect their positioning in society as well. And so, let's silence the voices of Black and brown folks online. Let's silence the voice of women. Let's, privilege in the algorithm conservative voices, and even to the point of social media lifestyle content where we want to see trad wife content at the top right of your For You page. All of these things are purposeful. They're definitely not an accident, and they are aligned. And there are so many now, studies showing how the conservative media machine, there have been, multiple billions of dollars invested in all media across the board, on top of them leveraging their relationships with one another as billionaires. For example, Jeff Bezos censoring the Washington Post editorial board from endorsing Kamala Harris in the election. Right. So this is about consolidation. This is about consolidation of power, consolidation of control, and then also it is about white supremacy and authoritarianism, and we have to be really honest about that. I'm happy to be able to be on a platform where we can talk about these things, because we're missing the context if we're only talking about them, making money and this being a free enterprise, because it isn't a free enterprise. It's not free if the editorial board can express themselves, right? You're right. It's not free if the algorithm is being manipulated to depress the speech of Black and brown activists. If, Mark Zuckerberg shadow bans political, quote unquote political, right, by their definition, content online, and then elevates the content of the manosphere, right? That nothing about any of this is free.
Right. And there is, again, I go back to this, like, we want to have a high-minded conversation about, journalism being the fourth estate, right? And of democracy, right? That it is the pillar that holds the other pillars of democracy to account. But we also know that the ways that we've seen them behave over the last period of time, and it is easy to think about, just since the election or during the election, but people started to slide, when Trump first came on the political scene, right? And that's why I think it becomes sometimes it's easy to just sort of pin it to money, because it was like, oh, they, it is they're selling papers, right? Like people are watching their anchors,
ratings,
right?
Views,
right, exactly, right. Their ratings are up, right? And I think that was an easy way to sort of justify their abdication of their role, or as the fourth estate of democracy, is just to say, well, it's about ratings. When clearly that's not the case. But what does that mean? And I think you said some of this too, in terms of like, because media capture is both about the institutions, but it's also about capturing what gets talked about. Right? What gets talked about, what gets emphasized, whether it's through the algorithm or through editorial choices.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that we have to, and, Media 2070, our framework and analysis is centered around, questioning and critiquing the idea that the role of media in society is objective because of the actual, of course, the racist roots that I just discussed, and how, in the history of the Black press and Black media has been about liberation, right? Has always been a political project, and always been a project that is focused on the health and well-being of our communities, be it, advertising jobs, out west, and motivating the Great Migration, all of those types of things. And then, advocating for abolition, like the North Star newspaper, Frederick Douglass started, Ida B. Wells' anti-lynching campaign. And so we have to have a more nuanced conversation about the role that media has played in society, the myth of objectivity, because objective to who and objective according to what? I don't know if you've worked in corporate newsrooms, but there's times when, the Black journalists that we work with talk about being censored in their editorial processes and told to, that their opinion, that their perspective on stories that they're reporting is biased because they're telling the story from the aspect of the community, from the standpoint of people who are, quote unquote, not perfect victims, all of these different types of things. And so we have to have a critical analysis of that. And, I know that there's high-minded theory, but then there's also the actual very real impact that dominant news coverage and media coverage has on the lives of Black folks, where we have, Black women being harmed and, dying in childbirth at higher rates because of the ways that media talks about Black women, and the ways that our societal narratives that are pushed and supported by the media, right? Proliferate, and then all the way into the medical system, we see dark-skinned Black men getting harsher sentences in the justice system, again, because of the ways that the media talks about crime, right, quote-unquote crime, and how menace to society that these folks are, super predators, all of those different types of things. We have to also understand that this is not just about, the practice and the theory of journalism or the role of journalism in our society. This is about our lived experience and how, yes, as the fourth estate, media actually is an underlying and an interweaving structure throughout our society. And the narratives and the stories that it pushes and upholds and uplifts or suppresses, we are impacted directly in our lived experience by those. And that's also why it's so scary to see, Elon Musk sending out tweets killing the bill to extend the government's budget and spending.
on his social media platform, right?
On his social media platform that he's not a U.S. citizen, and so I'm not a nativist by any means. I'm just pointing things out.
Right. Yeah, I think that's. We'll come and talk about some of that too. But the other thing I want to just circle back to is that there is a danger, right? Too, and this is a getting at the I'm not trying to make excuses, right, for corporate media, but there is also this sort of reality about the danger that that journalism faces, and maybe not just corporate media, but journalism faces in general, when you have someone like Trump's current nominee for the FEC saying that he won't rule out going after, outlets that critique Trump, or boycott social media platforms, right? Like going after people who are saying we're going to withdraw, we're going to leave Twitter and go to Blue Sky. Right, and that he's not above going after those people, and so like there is a danger, right, that I think journalists and outlets and platforms do face.
Yeah, absolutely, and to have Brendan Carr be the chairman of the FCC, who is already like preemptively threatening media companies with losing their licenses so that they would not be able to broadcast on the airwaves, threatening people with criminalization if they're organizing, even organizing their participation by leaving a platform or by, removing their ads. We have also, some of these incoming elected officials or appointees talking about, looking at individual journalists to be tried and prosecuted. And, this is akin to every authoritarian government in the history of the world has done this exact same thing. And then here we are calling ourselves, land of the free, home of the brave. These people are going to be duly appointed officials. And even just the specter of the threat, we already see, ABC 15 paying this man up,
paying the man off. Okay.
That's what it's called.
So, Tia, when we come forward, I want to talk a little bit about Media 2070. I want to talk also about, just the role of Black media right now and really the importance of Black media as we see, sort of the mainstream and corporate media sort of disintegrating and not being trusted, us not being able to trust, right, what we're hearing. So I know that we have a lot to talk about. This is a serious issue for democracy, right, in general, but also for our community. So I'm glad that you joined us. Stay with us. We have lots more to talk about with Tia Oso when we come forward.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with more things you should know from BIN News. President Biden has announced $4.2 billion in student loan forgiveness for 55,000 public service workers through the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, helping Americans save and pursue their goals. The St. Paul, Minnesota City Council is overriding Black Mayor Melvin Carter's budget vetoes, restoring a $1.9 million renovation of council offices funded by the American Rescue Act. Rudy Giuliani is facing a contempt hearing after refusing to turn over assets to pay a nearly $150 million judgment in a case involving two Black Fulton County election workers. Giuliani had spread election fraud lies about them, leading to 2020 death threats. And Black Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens and others were on site to break ground for the city's first senior center, featuring a wellness center, fire pits, and more. The $30 million project is funded by city bonds. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Delays out of Santa Monica 10 eastbound from Cloverfield across Mid-City. It remains pretty heavy all the way to the 5 in Boyle Heights. Calabasas 101 southbound. It's heavy all the way from Lost Hills to the 170-134 split. More slowing in Hollywood from Sunset Boulevard into downtown Los Angeles. It's slow in Santa Clarita. This is the 14 northbound, leaving the 5 all the way to Soledad Canyon Road. Very tough on the 210 eastbound from Mountain out of Pasadena. You're on the brakes to the 57 and ahead in Upland from Baseline to the 15.
Some people just know you could save money on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Those people are probably saving a carload of cash right now. So what are you waiting for? Check Allstate first for a quote today. You're in good hands with Allstate.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The two Black head coaches in the 12-team college football playoffs have first-round games beginning tonight. Notre Dame coach Marcus Freeman is leading his team against Indiana tonight. Freeman, age 38, is in his third season at Notre Dame. Penn State's James Franklin also has a home game in the first round. Penn State takes on Southern Methodist Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Franklin, age 52, is in his 10th season at Penn State. Freeman and Franklin are attempting to make history No black coach has led a school to an NCAA Division I national title in football. 7th-ranked USC is at number 4 at UConn tomorrow in a marquee game for women's college basketball. The game features two of the premier stars in women's hoops, USC sophomore Juju Watkins and UConn senior Paige Beckers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Whether you're going over the river and through the woods in the capable Silverado 1500, getting the choir to church on time in the 3-row Traverse,
Thank you.
or driving cross town to deliver your famous Cajun-spiced holiday turkey in the Equinox EV, America's most affordable EV with a 315-plus mile range. Add confidence to every holiday adventure and get it done with a rugged and capable Chevy truck or SUV. Now, during Red Tag, get 0% APR financing for 36 months on select Chevy models when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
Offer available on all 2025 Equinox and 2024 Equinox EV, Blazer EV, and Silverado EV models. Monthly payment is $27.78 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment is 26.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 1/2/25.
Thank you.
Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm-fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties: classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a black and brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
You're inside the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to the Black Pack. I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and we are continuing our conversation with Tia Oso, the Senior Director of Media at Media 2070. So, Tia, your organization released a very detailed report outlining the case for media reparations. So tell me, what does media reparations mean? And what does it look like?
So, Adrianne, media reparations, and the name of our Media 2070, we were launched in 2020, and we are forecasting 50 years into the future. I call it the Afrofuturist Project, where we went to the future, and now we're back. Mm-hmm. And we are saying that by the year 2070, we will have realized media reparations. And the vision for that work is that Black folks will own and control our narratives from ideation through production and distribution, and that we will have the capital, the power, the means, the expertise in order to do that, so that we are the ones setting the agenda and telling our stories, owning and controlling our narrative.
Mm-hmm. So that, I mean, it that strikes me as something that you said earlier in the conversation about the role of the Black press in previous times. And I always think about this, particularly in moments like we are in right now, where not just there's the corporate media and their shenanigans and their there are moments where I was like, they were a part of the coup.
Right.
But also just the ways in which our community in particular, right, has been the targets of mis and disinformation campaigns, propaganda campaigns. I mean, we talk about it as mis and disinformation, and I use those terms all the time, and we should use them. But in some ways, it's just straight lies and it's propaganda. And I think the thing that you said is it really is about attempt to control and manipulate, right, the population. And our communities have been targets of that. And so when I think about how in decades and generations past, we did control, right, the narrative. We did have Black press and Black media that helped us understand what was happening. And so I think my question to you, sort of in the given you all's trip to the future and your return back to present day, how do you all define sort of the role of Black press and Black journalism for our community right now, and not right now and going forward, really?
Yeah, definitely. And, you're so right. And I always talk about the history of the Black press in this country and, the unique role that Black media institutions and media practitioners play in our community, because they really are community members. They really are. And we have used the media just as we use, our Twitter fingers, to rise up Black Lives Matter. We use the printing press. We use the radio and the airwaves. We're using podcasts to fight for liberation. And some people call it, activist journalism or movement media. But honestly, when we're talking about the context of Black folks in the United States, the role of a Black newspaper then, right, would be necessary to advance the project of liberation. And so, Los Angeles has a really rich history of Black-owned media. You have the Liberator and the California Eagle. And then, even still now today, we have the Wave newspapers and LA Sentinel. We have, KBLA. We have Magic in Inglewood. And also there are nonprofit newsrooms today in Los Angeles carrying on, and expanding on this tradition as well. I'm going to call out the Objective and LA Taco as examples. There are, Tennessee's Way Chimaringa. There are independent, free, freelance journalists that are just, that are freedom fighters and liberators, because it starts with telling the truth, like IDB World would say. And I think that right now more than ever, we need a robust investment in independent Black media, because who else is going to tell the truth? The elite capture of major broadcast news is total and complete. You have to fight now to tell the truth, and they want to. What is the man who owns the LA Times? You want to have a bias meter on your opinion. On your opinion, this is dangerous. It's ridiculous. It is a slap in the face to the tradition of media. And I'm not a journalist, but I did major in mass communications in undergrad. I've written on newspapers and worked in communications and media relations quite a bit, and so I understand. I understand the ethics and the importance of journalists as professionals. And even activists and, nonprofit and, democratic, journalists, as people who are trying to shine the light of truth, people who are trying to inform their communities. And yes, even if we have an agenda such as liberation, we still should hold our media institutions and media practitioners to a standard of care, is what we call it in Media 2070, in that they're not actively perpetuating harm with their coverage or with their practices. And we are going to call on our institutions to both be, the light and the darkness, because we're going through dark times, and we're also going to be called on to support and partner with our institutions. And I think that it's important for us to understand that now more than ever.
There is a way in which, too, I mean, when we, just back to the thought about mis and disinformation, and some of that comes from an actual lack of information, right? Like when I think about the number of times, not just through the election, but also, around policy, and trying to break down, what particular things mean as they're moving through the state legislature, they're moving through, Congress, the kinds of explanation and explainers, I always call them, that we really need to be doing, and there's a role for that, in terms of our press. I want to just put a pin in, not even put a pin in, lift up one of the things that you said, which is that we need robust investment in Black media. And one of the things that I get hit up every day with someone asking me to subscribe to their Substack or their, or their new media venture, right? Every day on whatever social media platform I'm on, and they're not Black. And so when I think about, that in particular, the ways that we think about or maybe don't think about the fact that we get good journalism, and we get media outlets like KBLA and all the others that you mentioned when there is robust support for them. It's dollars, right? And are there ways in which you are? I mean, how would you say more about that to folks, about the importance of that, the sort of understanding how we have to support the journalism that we need for our community?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're looking at, we need to have media play such an important role in society, back to even that, principle. And so we're looking at media reparations and the process of media reparations as identifying ways that media outlets can be resourced and have business models that are sustained through public dollars, such as, maybe there are tax revenues or ad revenues from these corporate media that they need to be sharing and distributing to sustain a more robust media ecosystem. We're also looking at and encouraging philanthropy. The reports have come out now, conservative philanthropists have put multiple billions of dollars into their messaging and media systems in order to influence and advance their agenda. And it's a minuscule what's happening on the movement media side and progressive media side on our end of things. And so philanthropy has definitely a significant role to play, in addition to us as subscribers, as individuals, because, how many $5 a month do you have?
Right.
But you need the information, right? And everything can't be behind a paywall. The best information can't be behind a paywall. And all of this has happened, systemically, where we have these media and tech models and venture capital models, making everything monetized, putting everything behind paywalls, shrinking their staff. They want to maximize efficiency. Now they want to replace those staff with AI. And so we need to understand that it is important for us to make investments, and that everything does not need to be for profit. And actually, it is bad for society when we require our every media outlet to function as a profitable for-profit, their loyalty is to their investors type of business. That is not healthy for any of us. It's not healthy for our information. It's not healthy for society. It's not healthy for our media literacy. We really need to understand that we need to be robust in investing in the health and well-being through supporting our media system.
Yeah. Okay, so more on the other side. We'll be continuing our conversation with Tia Oso from Media 2070 about the media in general, Black media. I want to know what you all are planning in the next period of time. So stay with us. We have a lot more to talk about when we come forward. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide cleans better than the leading competitive free detergent, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues.
Plus, Tide Free and Gentle has no dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on her skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do
Let's play something, Grandma.
became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Linking social justice and climate justice all year long. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through their ambassador program, workshops, and annual conference, Forgiving for Living has touched over 3,000 young lives, providing mentoring, life skills, training, and tools for building self-esteem and confidence. You can make a difference. Visit forgivingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Forgiving for Living, Inc., building brighter futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to The Black Pack, and we are continuing our conversation with Tia Oso, Senior Director of Media 2070. And so we've talked about a lot, Tia. We talked about how the corporate media is failing us. We talked about how their capitulation is paving the way for authoritarianism. We talked about social media platforms manipulating their followers. We talked about the role and importance of the Black press and media reparations. And we talked about Media 2070, looking way forward, and then coming back and saying, well, what does reparations look like for Black media, and what do we need to be doing to control our narrative? And so you all, I think, just recently turned 4 years old. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so one of the questions that I would have is for you all then is what's next for the project? What are you all thinking about and the impact that you can have on, making sure that we're shaping, again, the narrative, the stories, bringing in the voices that we know that we're going to need for this next period of time?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to share more. And as we're, going into our fourth year, we were founded in October of 2020. First, I want to lift up my colleagues. I don't know if you're familiar with the book News for All the People with Juan Gonzalez. The co-author of that book is Joseph Torres, and he's our senior policy researcher. And so we are working on supporting reparations campaigns and commissions across the country in researching the role of the media in perpetuating structural racism and systemic harm. He's also initiated a research project about the FCC and whether or not they are violating the 14th Amendment and equal protections clauses by basically redlining, right, and Jim Crowing the airwaves. So we're going to be, debuting some pieces of that research, and then Diamond Hardiman, our reparative journalism manager, and Vinikia Williams, our campaign manager, have initiated a partnership with the University of Southern California Annenberg School of Journalism, the Charlotta Bass Center, and we are working with a group of journalism students there with Dr. Alyssa Richardson to do a reparative journalism. We did a guest lecture, and they're engaged in the process of reparative journalism as a practice and learning how to be more accountable to communities. And we're calling the project From Riot to Repair. We'll be debuting an archive of their work where they're actually going back into Black communities and talking about the ways that coverage of things like George Floyd, the LA riots, Nipsey Hussle's murder impacted the Black community, and what does repair look like? What does apology look like? We're going to be debuting that research and some other really amazing programming this spring with an edition of our Black Feature newsstand there in Los Angeles.
Well, so that one of the things, right, when we think about what we need going forward, obviously, it is Black journalists, right, who are being trained up, right, to think about the world in this way. And I think that's, or approach their jobs, right, approach their work in this way. So I appreciate, one, you all doing that work, or the partnership that you have, but also for you just to lift it up, because I think that's also, one of the things that's critical in terms of how our stories get told is who is telling them, and what are they coming to that role, what are they bringing with them into that role about particularly folks who've been trained in traditional journalism schools.
Yes, exactly. And that's where we came up with Diamond actually coined the term in the framework reparative journalism through her role in working in newsrooms, local newsrooms in particular, in that, of course, when journalists, even to be called to this profession, right? People take their role very seriously, and the myth of objectivity that's perpetuated in journalism education is something that has to be, again, critiqued and analyzed, and we've developed curriculum and trainings in order to help develop that process and go through that process with a journalist, and we're hoping to expand that work so that it can live outside of Media 2070 and to train other practitioners and journalism educators and professional, associations. I'm looking at y'all, NABJ, in the practice of reparative journalism, because it's necessary. It's necessary for us to also understand that your role is to be objective in your practice, as in, holding yourself to a high standard, but we need to understand that the ethics of journalism also does not excuse us from holding folks to account to our practice of care. And so we also have developed over time with groups of advising journalists, practitioners and scholars, our Media Care Collaborative and the Pledge to Care, which is featured on our website, where we talk about understanding how you can move away and shift away from harmful practices to practices of care and a culture of care in your newsroom without compromising your professional standards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having a flashback actually to the first journalism class I ever took, and in fact was nearly the last, in part because we had to, I don't know, whatever it was, there was some assignment we had to write something or another, and I handed mine in and I thought it was great work, and I, sort of was hit with what you described earlier in terms of what happens in newsrooms where Black journalists are told that their reporting is biased, right? And it was sort of that moment. And at the time, I didn't understand it, right? And I thought, oh, well, maybe this, this is just not for me, right? Like, 'cause this is the only way I know how to tell this story. Like, I was asked to do an assignment and tell this story, and I just told it in the way that, that it appeared to me that it needed to be told. But I think that's a big deal to both. On the one hand, sort of, support journalists who, understand that there is a, story to be told, and it needs to be told from a perspective, this idea that you said that about the myth of objectivity, which is important, right, to understand. But there's a way in which we shrink people, right, who really do have something to contribute, right, and something to offer to how we understand the world around us, and telling certainly facts, right? I think the people's standards, right, don't have to change, but there's other layers of telling truth that are not just about the what, when, where, and why of the story.
Yeah, exactly. And what you just shared, Adrienne, so many folks who come through our workshops are a part of our salons or other ways that we engage Black journalists, in particular, and other journalists of color. They have that exact same experience where going through journalism school, serving in a corporate newsroom. We also have a short film documentary called Black in the Newsroom that talks about this, where through the process of editing, the myth of objectivity, the standards around using passive voice versus active voice, so that you're advocating responsibility from the system, it makes people shrink, and it separates you from their humanity, and that's not necessary. You can be a professional, right, and keep your humanity, because it is the human part of you to be a storyteller that drove you and is drawing you into the profession in the first place.
Right. That's right. Okay, Tia Oso, Senior Director of Media 2070. I want to thank you so much for joining and for talking to us about the work that you all are doing, important work. And I appreciate both you for joining and also for the work that you all are doing to bring about that future, that 2070 vision that you all saw and saw fit to come back and create your work based on that. So appreciate you and all that you're doing, and would love to hear the sort of to hear the experience of some of those students at Annenberg when they get through the program. It'd be fascinating to understand what people's experience were and how they what they plan to do with with what they learned. So thank you so much, and I'm definitely going to ask you to come back. So there's that.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Happy to come back anytime. Also happy to connect you with Dr. Richardson as she's working with the students. It's so exciting, and we'll love to share their work with you. It's really powerful.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much. All right, and I want to thank you all for joining me here at the Black Pack. As always, we appreciate you spending part of your Friday evening with us. I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy Kwanzaa, and I wish you great joy in the new year. You've been listening to the Black Pack here at KBLA Talk 1580. Enjoy your weekends.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know from BIN News. Madison, Wisconsin Police Chief Sean Barnes has been named Seattle's new police chief by Mayor Bruce Harrell and will start next month. Barnes, who was Black, gained national attention after Monday's school shooting in Madison. He has served as chief since 2021. Reports say up to 80 people are injured and 1 person is dead after a suspected attack at a crowded